Okay, welcome back. I'm not sure if this is going to work, but I'm going to do this for a bit of fun. This is kind of an add-on to the Pride of Nations campaign, and the purpose of this video is to try and depict the baptism at Adrianople, the first engagement of the campaign between the Ottomans, and the Russian Empire under Prince Menshikov that hurtles down through Silistria and smashes into Rita Pasha's command in Adrianople. Now, this is Empire Total War, which I'm not a big Total War fan. This mostly depicts 18th century warfare, but I'm running the Imperial Splendour mod, which pushes the campaign start date right back to the 1780s and goes right up to 1850. So this campaign kind of ends around the time when the Pride of Nations campaign begins, and it does include the Nazim al-Shadir, the new model army that the Ottomans fielded in the 19th century. And this is the army that I have in the field just now. So, we're pretty much up. The forces are kind of deployed. The Russians, you can see, are over here. And I'll give you a quick tour of the command. So on the elevated area, we've got a single artillery battery. I've paused the game with the opening salvo of the battle. We've got Rita Pasha here with the artillery on the kind of mount. On the left flank, we've got 3 cavalry squadrons concealed in foliage, 2 over here and 1 here. My thinking was, I don't know why, that they would probably push harder on the left, because there's quite a bit of open ground around here. So I wanted to kind of guard this area with 3 cavalry squadrons. Two cavalry squadrons set to the right, again in foliage concealed. And we've got single line infantry across the entire front. The Russians do not deploy in a single line. They're a bit more bunched up. So my plan with the opening salvo is to wheel around the right flank to try and set up a position for kind of cross-firing their forces, thinking that they're going to put most of their pressure on the kind of center and the left. So I'm going to unpause with the opening salvo and begin the battle. In my ears, the music is incredibly loud, so there's a real possibility that none of this is going to be audible and perhaps won't be usable. That said, I can run the replay again with kind of no music. That might be an idea. Anyway, I'm going to unpause, press play, and here we go. Now, one thing I really like about this mod is the kind of sound effects. It doesn't add a massive amount to the gameplay, if I'm honest with you, because it's just a very easy kind of game. It's, you know, but it makes it so playable, just because everything feels like a kind of piece of art, you know. So the Russian artillery is responding. In an artillery duel, we're beginning to wheel around the right flank into position. We'll keep a position up on the mount for the time being with our artillery. You can see the smoke from the Russian guns. Now, from this position, I begin to notice that the Russians are really beginning to move hard on my right flank. So I start kind of taking note of that, thinking, ooh, what's about to happen? But I can see formations heading towards the right flank. I'm keeping the cavalry set back for the time being because it's not clear what's going to happen. Keeping the cavalry in place on the left. I keep them concealed in foliage so they don't become targets for artillery. Now it looks like we made contact with something there. We hit one of their formations. It flickered, which suggests that its ranks were sort of momentarily wavering. Again, we're still seeing their forces moving to our right. You can see the right flank beginning to take shape. We need to kind of hook round. Let's have a quick look at the Nazim al-Shadir, the new model army. Very cool uniforms. This is pretty much what they would have looked like in sort of 1852, which is when the baptism at Adrianople happened. So the Russians are making an ill-advised frontal cavalry charge with their lancers. I begin to form up into square formation because I wasn't sure if there was other cavalry hidden in the forest that might make a sudden charge. But that cavalry charge is beaten off with a musket fire. But this is where the action begins to get really spicy. So the Russians, at this moment I realize that they're putting most of their pressure on the right, and it's the far right of my position. So they're going to try and turn the right flank. And they're moving up forces in the left. They're not leaving the left completely bare, but they're just teasing the left. They're kind of matching me man for man. They've got another formation moving up. and they've got a reasonable presence in the center as well. You can see our boys are beginning to open fire. I begin to wheel around one of my formations to make get the best kind of firing arcs that I can. And at this moment I begin to consider moving my cavalry. I'm not sure if I do it yet, but my cavalry that's concealed in foliage, my thinking is I'm going to begin to move it around, because I'm thinking if they're going to put their pressure on the right, they might bring a cavalry charge in. Cavalry on the left is holding tight, but I've moved the squadrons so they're closer together. But at this moment I'm starting to get, Rita Pasha is starting to get anxious about the right flank. And this is where the Russians conduct a full cavalry charge, plus they begin to charge in with some grenadiers. Grenadiers are quite good hand-to-hand, so that's a really good diamond that catches me off guard. I move into square formation, but it's too late. The problem with square formation is that it's particularly ineffective against line infantry. It makes my forces vulnerable to musket fire, so if I did it too early, they might have broken anyway, but my right flank is beginning to crumble at this moment. I'm kind of thinking, at this moment, yeah, the battle is lost. So the cavalry is now moving headlong out of cover, looking to take up a position on the high ground so we can charge down this slope and try and re-stabilize the right wing, because it's obvious the right wing is beginning to crumble. So I want to try and get some fast cavalry in, and really to counter their cavalry. Even though this is an opening disaster for me, the one thing that it has done is revealed most of their cavalry. They continue to apply the pressure on it to the center, being to wheel forces round now to try and get as much crossfire as I can. We've got two formations countering them on the left. And at this moment I decide I'm going to break one of the cavalry squadrons off, relocate that to the center or to the right, and send the other two down here to take up position. And now we're conducting a full cavalry charge down the slope to counter the Russian cavalry. My right flank is completely broken. So they're beginning to wheel their forces round to put more pressure onto the center. At this moment, the battle hinges on a bit of a thread. Much rests on the success of this cavalry charge. They have reserve forces, which they were, pouring musket fire into my cavalry, and that was kind of worrying for me. So one of the cavalry formations is broken, but we've still got two in action. And now we're looking to move up to counter these grenadiers that have meleeed into the right. Going to begin to turn these square formations back into line, and then they're kind of doubling round onto my right flanks. They're beginning to really pressure into the center now. This is a dangerous moment. So two cavalry squadrons now are beginning to kind of move around to the left. This one I haven't committed to the right yet, but I have decided I'm going to move it to the right because one of our cavalry squadrons broke. And our cavalry charge was successful against the grenadiers, who formed into diamond formation to get as much impact as possible. So we've stabilized the right to an extent using our cavalry. One of our formations is broken. And our infantry on the right flank is kind of taken to their heels. I'm trying to ride down as much of their grenadiers as possible. And things are still pretty dangerous in the center, where now they're kind of doubling around. And we're now badly outgunned in the center. So we're relocating one of these cavalry squadrons to the right, and we're moving the other two squadrons using the foliage, the cover, so they can't hit us with their guns and they can't react, positioning them to the rear of their right flank. Because what we want to do really is to neutralize this force, wheel around our left flank to kind of make good our shortfall and firepower in the center. Our cavalry, having successfully countered their cavalry, means that we now have the mobility in the field. So we're moving our cavalry around, and they respond with their infantry. They break off two infantry formations, plus their general breaks off to try and counter our cavalry. This is good. This takes pressure off of the center, and this also exposes this force to the cavalry moving, relocating from the left. So we can kind of hit them now from two positions using cavalry. I decided to bring my cavalry back up to this kind of slope, so we've got the slope to charge down, and also just draw their forces away from the center as much as possible. And we decide to hold the cavalry here with the hope that this kind of pins this force in place, We're moving their general back into the center. And we're now going to begin to prepare the cavalry charge through this foliage into the Russian right flank. We're still outgunned in this position, so I'm wheeling our forces round to try and put as much firepower as possible into the Russian center. Again, I'm using our cavalry, using the mobility to kind of tease their infantry, shaping operations to try and kind of tease. Here we go, so we've got their infantry to turn around to face us. We conduct the charge down the slope, and we're going to hit their left flank, which is where they have infantry superiority. This is coming off. We've formed as a diamond, so this formation is pretty much doomed now. These Russian grenadiers. We're now almost kind of equaling them in terms of firepower, but these forces, the losses are beginning to stack up now. Cavalry charge is successful on our left. The Russians break. And this thing gives us the opportunity to wheel these formations round and to begin to put pressure on the Russian right. The Russian left then is broken. We're now going to push on into the 1st Grenadier Regiment. And we're going to try and roll up their left flank. So the cavalry is successful then. We've kind of dealt with their right flank. We're relocating. Now what happens here is one of our infantry formations breaks. Because this has taken heavy losses, and switching it out for one of the infantry formations from our left flank to stabilize the center. And we're going to move this formation around where they're kind of there's a little lower rate of fire. It gives them time to recover. We're moving them quite slowly. One of the infantry formations has been held back, but they'll be moved up. And we've now pretty much got them in a vice. We've got mobility to the rear and to the flanks of their army. We're now running down their forces. If you don't run down their formations, they have time to recover and return to the field. If you can inflict heavy losses as they're breaking, it means that the formation leaves the field. Again, they're running down their 32nd Regiment. Cavalry's fallen up into diamond formation and making a charge against the general command in the center. And we're now moving into the rear. At this point, it's pretty much a fait accompli. The baptism of Adrianople is in the bag. It's really now just the business of finishing off. As long as our kind of center holds, which it is, that's a notification to say that the enemy general's been killed. Now, of course, Menshikov wasn't killed. I think he was wounded. So in the opening engagement, so he's wounded. His formation, his kind of staff command leaves the field, and we're now conducting headlong charges into the center. We've got cavalry formations forming up into diamond. Some of our formations are still wavering. 50% casualties. The 22nd Orta Nazimerchadin. And that's a wrap, pretty much. Just in case their forces recover or the cavalry charges go wrong, they still begin to form up on the left, just in case. You know, sometimes these cavalry charges just don't come off. During the midst of that, I destroyed their artillery. I think their artillery was positioned in this tree line here. And that's it. So, for a bit of fun, I thought I'd break up the kind of routine of Pride Nations uploads to try and depict, imagine what maybe the opening engagement of the campaign was like. Normal service will resume, so I might add this either to the next upload or make this a standalone upload. It's a pretty good mod, Imperial Splendour, Rise of the Republic. Check it out. The other really good mod for a Total War game is Attila Total War Fall of the Eagles, combined with Europa Perdita, is just an absolute kind of it is something to behold. So check that out. The Russian army is broken, has left the field, and the first battle of Adrianople is in the bag. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.